All right. One of my favorites, Colin Cowherd's Herd Hierarchy, Week 1, featuring Jason McIntyre and me. So Colin Cowherd does a top 10 week every week in the NFL. We kind of break it down, see where we agree, where we disagree, things like that. So let's get into Week 1 of Colin Cowherd's Herd Hierarchy. Jason McIntyre, what a lovely shirt.
It's our top 10 teams. I spend way too much time thinking about it. Here we go.
Herd Hierarchy.
Time is now. Let's go.
The top 10 NFL teams according to Colin. Number 10.
Listen, I dropped Denver down to 10. They're still in the top 10. You can't overreact. They had 2 fumbles at the 1-yard line.
Okay, I think Denver is a good team. I think Denver certainly shouldn't be tossed out just because of one game. Agreed. No doubt about it. I've got serious concerns, though, about Nathaniel Hackett, if he can hack it as an NFL head coach. I've got real concerns about Russell Wilson, because that was not the Russell Wilson we've seen in the past. Russell Wilson did not move at all. He had 1 rush. It just seemed like a weird situation. It didn't seem like what I was expecting from Russell Wilson with the Broncos. With that being said, it's game 1, day 1. Russell didn't play in the preseason. None of the starters played in the preseason. This is their first game together, their first year together. Russell still threw for 340 yards. He still looked sharp arm-wise, threw a lot of good deep balls. Jerry Jeudy is still good. So I'm not writing Denver off, but I am slowly taking them out of my Super Bowl contender list. I'm not sure if they're there, and they're in such a tough division.
But here's what worries me. 12 penalties for 106 yards. That's the most penalty yards by any team. An absolutely historically epic fail with 3.5 minutes to go. Do we have a coaching issue on our hands?
I mean, can I do it or can I do it, ladies and gentlemen?
I mean, I'm telling you, that worries me. I don't love their offensive line. I still like their personnel, but I'm going to slide them down to 10. Way too many penalties, chaotic at the end of the game. 70% of coordinators that get jobs fail, some quickly. Do we have an issue in our hands at Denver with the head coach?
Number 9.
I mean, I basically said, that was wild.
You know what? Philadelphia makes it. I like teams that do something well. They led the NFL in rushing last year. This weekend, over 215 rushing yards.
Here's the thing with Philly. I like Philly a lot, actually. I'd probably have them a little higher. But I think Philly, my fear is that Philly is built for the regular season. You know, they're not built for the playoffs. They're not built for a Super Bowl. They're built to steamroll teams that can't keep up with them or teams that can't handle their scheme, but they may not necessarily win a Super Bowl. I think they certainly should be in the top 10. I think Philly is awesome. And if Jalen Hurts takes any kind of a step forward and gets I mean, Jalen Hurts, to me, would really only have to be above average for them to make some legitimate noise. Now, the good thing is that they play in the NFC. The better thing is they play in the NFC East. So they have a pretty easy road to success. They have a pretty easy road to double-digit wins and to the playoffs. So, you know, if they play in the AFC, it's like, am I going to put them ahead of Buffalo? Am I going to put them ahead of the Chiefs? Am I going to put them ahead of, you know, even the Chargers? But in the NFC, it's like, well, I mean, who am I putting them up against? The Bucks, the Rams. They're right there with those teams. So I don't mind this at all. I like Philly a lot.
4 different people had a rushing touchdown. They know what they are. They play to their strengths. A.J. Brown got 13 targets. They give the ball to the right people. Listen, Jalen Hurts is you're not going to confuse the way he throws the ball with Kyler Murray, Justin Herbert, or Patrick Mahomes. But when teams know what they are and lean into it, they run the ball, they're physical, and now they've got a star receiver on the outside. They're a handful, 38 points in week 1. Remember, nobody's playing in the preseason. That is a lot of points in the NFL in week 1. Eagles 9.
Number 8.
Listen, I think the Dolphins are going to be a playoff team. I thought they would beat New England. They've won.
The Dolphins are worse than Philly, I think. I think Miami. I like Miami. I mean, these are all top 10 teams, I would assume, so I'm going to like all of them. But I would rather have Jalen Hurts than Tua. Number 1, first off. I think Philly is probably better all around than Miami. I think Miami can make some serious noise. Problem is, Miami's in the AFC. They're nowhere near the top of the AFC, so they already have a ceiling there. I do think Miami will be a fun team. I think Miami, the box score from week 1 was incredibly overinflated. Miami and New England had about the same amount of total yards, about the same yards per play. Miami got fortunate with some turnovers. They scored off of a fumble. They weren't as dominant as a 21-7 or whatever the final was looked. So we'll see when we get our 20-7. It says right there on the screen. But when we see a true, they scored on a 4th and 7, like 50-yard play, and they scored with a fumble return. So it looks like they dominated the Patriots. Really, they didn't. We'll see as Miami moves forward. I probably would have had them at 10, somewhere in there. But Miami is fun to watch.
Won 4 straight against the Patriots. Tyreek Hill, again, they gave him 12 targets and 8 catches. They got the ball to the right people. Here's the other thing. We know Tua is accurate.
Let me say this also about what he just said about Tyreek Hill. I think it's a really good thing for a coach, or a good predictor of success, I guess you can say, for a coach, if they can get the ball to their playmakers, right? Like Zach Taylor at the end of the Super Bowl couldn't get the ball to Jamar Chase and couldn't even get Joe Mixon on the field. That was a good indication that he's probably not a good coach. Mike McCarthy or Kellen Moore against Tampa, CeeDee Lamb had 1 catch, right? Good coaches can get their star players in position to do star things. Sean Payton was really good about that when he was with the Saints. Sean Payton could get whoever he wanted to involved, whether it was Alvin Kamara, Taysom Hill, Michael Thomas, whoever. A good coach can get their player the ball. And Tyreek Hill is the best player on that offense. So getting him the ball, I think, is a good indicator that they know what they want to do on offense.
And we said, give him an offensive coach and better weapons. Well, what did he do? He completed 69% of his throws and had 104 passer rating. He doesn't throw a great deep ball. Tua's not going to run around. But if you give him a great left tackle, he has it. A smart offensive coach, he has it. And weapons, he has it. He's going to give you about 26 points a weekend. Dolphins at 8.
Number 7.
I worry about the Rams' offensive line. Left tackle, they miss Andrew Whitworth a lot. Jalen Ramsey was awful. But it really comes down to Stafford being sacked 7 times. That's as many times as he was sacked during their entire playoff run. So they have a left tackle issue. Their center is now out for a month. I didn't think their O-line was a strength to begin this season. Now it is absolutely a weakness in a division with a lot of good pass rushes. So I'll put the Rams at 7.
I'm not really worried about the Rams because, Stafford didn't play at all in the preseason. He was banged up. He looked rusty. I think a lot of those sacks or a lot of those pressures was him holding the ball from being rusty. So I think that'll iron stuff out. Jalen Ramsey, the defensive back thing, that happens all the time. That's why I'm usually against paying defensive backs, is because you never know. Defensive back can only do so much with how good receivers are right now and how much of an offensive league it is. It's so much harder to find a true clamps cornerback. So, Jalen Ramsey getting cooked a little bit, that'll happen. Good cornerbacks get cooked all the time. The Rams, it's almost impossible to repeat. I don't think the Rams are dominant. I don't think they're at that class of the Buffalo Bills with the Kansas City Chiefs. They're probably, I'd say, below the Bucks. They're probably closer to the Eagles, in my opinion, in the NFC. So I think the Rams are good. It would not surprise me if they went back to the playoffs, but I wouldn't have them this high.
Listen, they got shut out in the second half against the Bills. They couldn't score at home with Matt Stafford, Cooper Kupp against the Bills.
I don't want to go off in this game, but McVay was terrible in this game as well. McVay is a very not scripted, but he's a very predictable coach, and he called one of the most predictable games I've ever seen in that Buffalo game. So McVay has to be better. I think McVay can be better, but McVay had an equally bad coaching performance against Buffalo as like Matt Stafford had a performance or the offensive line had a performance. It was a meltdown from the top to the bottom.
Number 6.
Tampa, kind of ugly, but I like this. Leonard Fournette got the ball, 127 rushing yards. That's with some offensive line injuries. Chris Godwin, hamstring. Donovan Smith, elbow. They've got injuries. They've been injured a lot, though, in the last couple of years.
The Bucs are good, and they are injured. The Bucs are a good team that's injured, which means like their ceiling is way higher. I think the Bucs are probably the best team in the NFC. They're not healthy. I think right now they're probably the best team in the NFC. They're going to be fine. If I had to gun to my head right now, I would probably take the Bucs to win the NFC and go to the Super Bowl.
With Tommy, they only allowed 3 points. Their front seven is fast and furious. Fewest points allowed in the NFL. Tampa at 6.
When you can straight up say you are not running the football on me like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers do, you can really dictate a lot of what teams do. It's so difficult for teams like the Rams. It's so difficult for teams like the Rams to establish a run, set a tempo, get play action working when the Buccaneers invite the run and say, look, you straight up will not run on me. So the Bucs always have that, and that's just defensively. That's not even taking into account how dangerous they are on offense with a healthy offense with Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Leonard Fournette, and, of course, Tom Brady, who's playing at an MVP level and has been for the last 25 years.
Number 5.
Boy, was that Khalil Mack acquisition a good move by the Chargers. Listen to this. Joey Bosa.
Personnel-wise, the Chargers might be the best team in football. Strictly personnel. They probably have, if not the best, equally as good quarterback. They have Austin Eckler. They have Keenan Allen. They have Mike Williams. They have Bosa, Khalil Mack, J.C. Jackson. The team is unbelievable. Problem is they're a factory of sadness. The problem is that they're the Chargers, right? The Chargers lose. The Chargers do this all the time. They go, back in the day, they would go 13-3, and they lose in the first round. They'd go 14-2, lose in the first round. 1 seed, home field advantage, loss, see you later, right? The Chargers are just one of those teams. Now, new team, new coach, new everything, Justin Herbert. They certainly have the roster to do it, but they've got to mature. And I don't mean mature as in being a brat. I mean mature as in they have a lot of young talent, a lot of young players, a lot of young leaders who, if they can take that step and become the player that they are going to be, the Chargers can certainly be a Super Bowl contender for sure. So they deserve to be in the top 5.
Khalil Mack combined for 16 quarterback pressures. Well, the Raiders only dropped back to throw 42 times, and some of those were quick 3-step drops. So essentially on half the dropbacks for Derek Carr, he was pressured, hit, or sacked. 16 pressures, 10 hits, 5 sacks. Listen, Keenan Allen's hurt. They didn't throw the ball much to Mike Williams. I'm worried a little bit about that. But defensively, that's kind of the weakness, an inconsistent pass rush. You could run on them. They look great on the defensive side. Derek Carr running for his life.
Number 4.
The Ravens. You keep telling me Lamar Jackson can't throw. Well, all 3 of us.
The Ravens are awesome, and Lamar Jackson can throw. Lamar has dispelled all that. That's if someone says Lamar Jackson can't throw, you might need to delete their phone number because they got some other stuff going on. Lamar Jackson is good. He matured. How I just said, I hope Justin Herbert and those young players do. Lamar is who Lamar is. Lamar is developed. Like Lamar came into the NFL, was dominant, but everyone said, look, you have to develop in this aspect. Well, ring the bell because he has developed in that aspect. Lamar is fine. The Ravens' same issue as last year. They're injured. They get injured all the time. Like right now, they have serious injuries in their backfield, which is not allowing them to run the football. They did not run the football well in week 1. They need to run the football well if they can do it. I believe they just had some defensive back injury. Arlen Humphreys maybe towards ACL, something like that. So they're already racking up injuries. They certainly are going to be a threat in the AFC, specifically in that division. I think the Ravens are really good. I'm not sure if I would have had them 4, but I wouldn't have had them too far off. They're a real threat. They are a true threat.
His touchdown passes were over 15-plus yards downfield, the most by any quarterback in week 1. Seems to me he throws a great deep ball. He's not the most accurate thrower. And the Jets outgained them. But what you are with Lamar Jackson, you're a big play offense. I'm okay with that. They're not as consistent completing third down passes.
But they're almost not, because they're almost more of a we are going to do this thing the entire game. And if you can't stop this thing, you're just going to lose. That's pretty much what they are. They're not like I would consider a big play offense like the Chiefs or the Bills, where they're gouging you. Like the Chiefs, I think, had like a 45% of their plays, their offensive plays in week 1 went for a first down. They are actively trying to pick up 16, 12 yards per play. They're not worried about like dinking and dunking, getting 4 yards, 5 yards, 2 yards. They're trying to get these huge clips. That's what I would say a big play offense is. That's not how I would classify the Ravens. I would say the Ravens are more of like the Eagles, more of a systematic, like, this is our game plan. This is what we know we can do. We're going to pick up 6 to 8 yards a play, one way or the other. Good luck stopping it.
They're not always beautiful to watch, but between his legs and throwing over the top, they are an explosive, big play offense. They get cheap points and fast points, and I think eventually that's how you have to score in 2022. You got to be able to score fast.
Number 3.
Love my Vikings. Staff's making fun of me this morning. Didn't turn the ball over. Justin Jefferson was the best player on the field.
The Vikings are really good. The Vikings are super, super good. And that's really tough for me because I have so many doubts about Kirk Cousins, or I have had so many doubts. So it's hard for me to be like, yep, they're going to go to the Super Bowl. Because Kirk Cousins doesn't even win primetime games, much less playoff games. So for him to win, a bunch of playoff games to go to the Super Bowl would be surprising. I love what the Vikings are doing and what the Vikings have done. But can Kirk Cousins do this? Because it's basically Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson. Like, Dalvin Cook obviously is really good, but it's, can Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson do this? Can a coaching change make this big of a deal? Is this big of a difference to where all of a sudden they can be in the NFC Championship game or the Super Bowl? It's funny because last year I bet on the Vikings to win the NFC North, and it didn't happen. And this year, right before the season, I was kind of crunching the numbers, and I was like, man, I kind of like the Vikings again. They should win the division. The Packers should slip up. The Packers should be worse. So it's like they could get, they could host playoff games. That's a big deal. The NFC's kind of weak. Justin Jefferson explodes if he does what Cooper Kupp did last year. All of a sudden, it's like, I was kind of doing it in my head. I was like, maybe I should get a Super Bowl ticket on the Vikings. I never did, but I love what the Vikings have going on. It is strictly on if Kirk Cousins can do this. If Kirk Cousins can pull a Joe Flacco where he leads them to the playoffs and then has just one of those miraculous playoff runs, that's what has to happen in Minnesota.
And anybody notice Kirk Cousins is actually pretty good against Aaron Rodgers? Listen, I thought when I watched that game, the only surprise to me in the 23-7 win is that it wasn't 33-7. I thought they completely dominated Green Bay. Now the Packers' O-line's beat up. But
the Packers also probably had the best defense in the NFL. That's being kind of undersold here, is that against a regular defense, that's probably like 42-7. So I've seen a lot of all 22 heads saying that the Packers actually played like a 10 out of 10 defensive game, but it doesn't show because they got the scoreboard. So I think that factors into the score.
But they went and got Zadarius Smith to be a pass rusher. He was great. I think Minnesota is, I said it in the preseason, I said it in the offseason, I'll say it now. This looks like a 12 or 13 win division winning team. I don't know what their weakness is. They're not great at corner, but they're good enough.
Number 2.
The Bills. The only reason I put them 2 is because of their turnovers, but they did.
All right, so it's going to be Bills Chiefs. I mean, look, agreed. Agreed. These are the two best teams in the NFL. This is your AFC Championship game, unless something happens, like they got to play before. But to me, all roads lead to Buffalo and Kansas City in the AFC, and then whoever comes out of that is going to win the Super Bowl. They are just both so dynamic. If you watch Sunday Night Football with the Bucks and the Cowboys, and you watch them moving the football, and you watch not only how they move the football, but just their philosophy, just the way that it was like how Todd Bowles would run on second down, or he would run on, certain, like they ran like, it was some insane number, but they ran, like a 60% clip on first downs. It was very much this conservative, old school 1993 style with a great defense, and it worked to win that game because Dallas wasn't doing anything. But then you watch Buffalo or you watch Kansas City, and it looks like you're watching a completely different sport. It looks like you went from watching a minor league to a professional team. It's crazy the difference. If you go back and watch almost any of these games, I would basically take out Minnesota because they run pretty similar. But if you watch any of the games this week, and then you turn one of these two teams on, it's light years different. I'm not sure if any other team can flat out keep up with what Buffalo and Kansas City do. Maybe the Chargers, maybe Minnesota, but that's really about it. I can't remember a year where there's been two teams that have such a disparity of not just talent, but like how they see the game. That's the biggest difference to me, is how they see it. How they go about it. That's what's shocking to me, is that it's impossible for me to sit back and say, yeah, I mean, if should I make up a team? Yeah, if Pittsburgh slips into the playoffs, they could really give the Bills some problems. How? Pittsburgh's going to score 17 points, 20 points on a good day. Buffalo's worst day, they're going to go out there and score 24 points. Kansas City's worst day, they're going to go score 21, 24 points. So you're going to have to, in the playoffs, like if you're a team, if you're the Dolphins, you are going to have to score 30 points. Flat out. You're going to have to score 30 points and stop them. If you can do that, okay. If not, you're going to lose. That's it.
Didn't punt against the Rams. In 4 of their last 6 games, including the playoffs, they haven't punted.
I mean, that's kind of what I'm talking about here. It reminds me of when the Warriors started to win finals. And you watch the Warriors, and then you go watch like the Pacers. It's like, well, I mean, there's no way the Pacers can possibly compete. The Warriors are basically taking 3x the amount of shots, or the Warriors are making threes more than the Pacers are making twos. So they could play for the rest of eternity. It's just mathematically impossible for the Pacers to win this game. I don't know why I just picked the Pacers, but like they're just like a notoriously slow old school team. But that's how it is with these teams. I mean, Colin laid it out perfectly. And now that I think about it, where the hell did Jason McIntyre go? But he said it best. It's like the Bills, they're not even punting. They're not even like slow them down. Slow them down. You can't even give up a possession. Like shut them down for a game. Trying to shut them down for a quarter. 4 out of the last 6 games, and that's playoffs. All right, think about the last 6 games. They played some really tough teams, and they aren't even punting. And then on the flip side, you've got the Mike McCarthys of the world who are happy to punt. You got the Frank Reichs of the world who are happy to punt, who are begging to punt on 4th and 2. You got them begging to play the field position game. I mean, really, like the Colts had a ton of steam about them before the season. Do the Colts look like a team that can keep up with the Bills or the Chiefs? Do the Colts look like a team that's playing the same game? I think not.
And that's with an average offensive line. They held the Rams to 52 rushing yards, and their last 19 regular season wins have been by 10 or more points. They are Mike Tyson if they were a fighter. They're not nuanced. They just knock you out when they get rolling downhill. Bills at 2.
Number 1.
Listen, Kansas City, only team that scored 40-plus points. At least in September with Andy Reid and Mahomes, you don't want to play this team. This is when they're at their best. I mean,
this is the Tom Brady effect, right? Because it's like the Chiefs, or even the Steph Curry effect. The Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes. And if Patrick Mahomes is playing at a high level with Andy Reid and how well they know this team, yeah, it's going to be really difficult to beat the Chiefs. I would not want to play the Chiefs. I mean, it's the Chiefs or the Bills. They're just... Josh Allen is an alien. He's a Martian. the Chiefs have a Martian and an alien on their side too, and his name's Patrick Mahomes.
He's got the highest passer rating in league history. I don't think they'll score as quickly as they did with Tyreek Hill, but I said this in the offseason. They'll score as much and be as productive. Also,
agreed, 100%. I think it's just, I don't know why I keep bringing up the Warriors, but it's just the Kevin Durant Warriors situation where it's like, yeah, they may not be as dominant, without Durant, but they can still be as productive, just in a different way. The Chiefs won't be as flashy as they were with Tyreek Hill. He is a superstar receiver leaving, but Patrick Mahomes will now distribute to so many more players, which arguably makes it harder to prep for, which arguably makes the offense run smoother because you can't just shut down Tyreek Hill or shut down Travis Kelce. So, I can understand the argument for, well, yeah, the Chiefs lost Tyreek Hill, but maybe their offense could run better. It will be as productive. I agree 100% with Colin.
Oh, you forget this. Juju Smith-Schuster was...
I ain't never forgot nothing, Colin. I have no notes on the desk right here. No notes. I'm not forgetting nothing.
Dealing with a shaky O-line in Pittsburgh and an old...
No, he was dealing with TikTok followers. He's only 25 years old. Juju, 2 years ago, was one of probably the 10 best receivers in the National Football League, and he's 25.
Quarterback. Anybody notice how good he was with Kansas City? Like, they added some of these pieces, some of these rookies, Juju Smith-Schuster, a Packer deep threat. You do realize they're all going to be better now playing with this coach, this quarterback, this O-line, and Travis Kelce drawing double teams. Kansas City #1. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Oh, no problem. Anytime. Yeah, not bad. The only teams I would really think about there, I'd take a look at Cincinnati, but I'd move some teams around. But for the most part, Colin, I think you got this one right, pal. I'll give you an A. B+.